The Hornets are stuck in absolute mediocrity and it is not looking good at all. They are 3-4 and everything just looks like a mess for them. Look, I want to give a little praise to the GM because the culture has shifted a little. At least they have a little bit of direction now with some young players. They have Brandon Miller, LaMelo, and they have some other young rookies who I think generally have potential. So fair. But look, this video isn't just to talk about this season, it's to talk about just the whole problem with the Hornets organization. And first off, we gotta talk about their poor recent record. They went 19-63 in last season. That kind of record, it signals big issues. And almost like the Nets, which check out my video if you haven't, they have a lack of identity. They have an inconsistent culture. And look, I'm an articles person. Multiple articles, they point out the team lacked a long, clear identity or winning DNA. And it makes sense. Also, there's a questionable draft and development history. For a long time, the Hornets have missed on draft picks and failed to turn talent into contenders. Now look, let's talk about the star players and fit concerns. LaMelo Ball, he's talented, but putting too much weight on one player in a weak supporting cast, that's gonna limit the team's growth. If culture is shaky, a star alone, it just isn't enough. And look, the cost of staying stagnant for the Hornets, it's a big Achilles heel they need to fix. In a league where teams who fully commit into a rebuild or retool too often, they stay in limbo. They're just falling behind. There is an urgent need for culture change. And I mean an urgent need. Look, firing Michael Jordan, that was a great step. He was a terrible owner. So I think they're on the right path right now. But too many times I've seen the Hornets supposedly going down the right path and just completely switch directions. Now look, I'm about to spew a very hot take. Trading LaMelo, it might be part of the discussion. Now look, I know some of you are saying, Jazz, you're tripping. Jazz, you're wrong. Look, before y'all go typing in the comments, hear me out first. If a star is in the system, but the surrounding culture and roster is just weak, trading them to free up assets, reset expectations, and start fresh isn't a bad idea. A fresh start with new leadership and identity, it could attract different players, it could attract better fits around a new core, and it could free up cap flexibility. Mind you, the Hornets threw a bag at LaMelo in 2023. And look, if LaMelo's fit with the culture or direction is misaligned, which that could be his contract size, his injury risk, which LaMelo's been very injury prone throughout his career, he has not been reliable at all. Or his style of play, which LaMelo is an absolute shot chucker sometimes, moving him, it could relieve a long time burden. But look, obviously on the flip side, trading a star player, it always carries risk. You lose a big talent, which LaMelo being pretty much the only talent besides Brandon Miller and some new rookies on the team. It's gonna hurt, right? Obviously it hurts the ticket sales, it hurts the jersey sales. And you have to ask, what next as a Hornets fan if you lose LaMelo? Now look, I was just praising the Hornets a little. I don't want to completely act like they've been terrible recently. They have some pros. They have a young promising talent. For example, Brandon Miller. He's had some really good seasons. He's showing flashes of being an all-star eventually. And look, the new front office direction. I love it. With new leadership focused on culture, character, and building from the ground up, there's a reason for optimism. Depth and development potential. They bought in several players and draft picks showing early signs of stepping up. For example, Zion James, he's pretty solid. That could build long-term value. Also, props to the Hornets GM. Cheap contracts and flexibility has been a key of his, and he's done great at it. Young core and draft assets often mean easier cap situations and flexibility to make moves. And look, the Hornets are in a very weak East. There is opportunities. The Eastern Conference has more room for up-and-coming teams to surprise. A well-executed rebuild could accelerate if the culture shift takes over. Now look, this is my take on trading LaMelo. If I was advising, yes, I think the Hornets should trade LaMelo. If the culture change is going to be genuine and the young core is going to take over, then the current star and supporting cast model, it might not work. Look, LaMelo, his shot attempts are very questionable. You just gotta ask yourself, can you win if LaMelo's gonna keep shooting those type of shots in a game, especially in the playoffs? And LaMelo being in such a poverty organization for so long, does he even have the winning play style? Does he even want to win? Trading LaMelo could jumpstart a rebuild, bring back multiple assets, picks, and young players, and allow the Hornets to define a whole new direction. Now look, let's dive even deeper into the Hornets organization. The Hornets have one of the longest playoff droughts in league history. 9 straight seasons without a postseason appearance. The last time they were in the playoffs, 2016 with Kemba Walker. They lost in the first round. There's a widespread perception of dysfunction in the franchise. And look, the Hornets, they can't attract a free agent for shit. Nobody wants to go to the Hornets, understandably. And look, the management and roster decisions have often been criticized as short-sighted or misguided. For example, failing to address key gaps in depth or investing in support around their young core. The Hornets don't do that. The center front court positioning has also specifically been called out as a glaring weakness. And look, talking about that, a lot of roster and fit problems. Even with a promising young core, the surrounding pieces and role players are not consistently supporting that core. It just leads to a lack of cohesion. The team lacks veteran proven winners and culture drivers. I mean, LaMelo Ball's your first option, no shit you're gonna lose games. So younger players are not being guided by a strong foundation of winning. Also, injuries have repeatedly set back key young players, specifically LaMelo, disturbing continuing in development. And look, the front court, without reliable bigs, losing Mark Williams in the offseason, they're struggling on the glass. They're struggling on the rebounding, which it's making them less competitive. And look, this could all just be summed down to poor depth. When injuries hit, the backup options have been relatively weak. Now let's talk about the execution issues with the Hornets. Now look, I just want to throw some bail to the Hornets real quick. Their coach, he's pretty good, you know what I'm saying? He used to be the Celtics coach. I think he's Sam Cassell right now. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I think Sam Cassell is the current Hornets coach. He's doing a good job with not good players. But let's talk about some execution issues with the Hornets real quick. The Hornets offense and defense have both been inconsistent. It goes hand in hand. And look, they just lack an identity. Are they a defensive team? An up-tempo team? A three-point heavy team? The lack of clarity leads to inconsistency. When LaMelo is on the floor, you still question how much the team improves. If your star cannot elevate the whole system because of misfits, you're trapped in mediocrity. In the offseason building, they have reportedly missed on picks or drafted players who just don't produce at an expected level. Which I'm not saying the recent picks have been bad, but I'm talking about in the past, before Brandon Miller got drafted. Now look, there's just growth barriers with this team. The Eastern Conference and the NBA environment, it's only gotten more competitive. Staying stagnant means falling further behind. If you keep one core member, like LaMelo, but fail to surround him properly, you may stay stuck in that almost territory rather than a breakthrough territory. The decision makers have to ask, are we committing to a win now around LaMelo, or rebuild and surround him or move him for assets? That fork in the road is critical. The perception of the team is weak. If players believe the organization doesn't have a winning culture, they avoid joining. But that's just my opinion, man. What do y'all think about the Hornets? I do think they have some potential, but we'll just have to see. If y'all like my video, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I'm not SGA, but call me Mr. Consistent. And until later, I'll see y'all on Mars. Peace.
You telling me you falling out of love with me. Hope you can find someone to love you better than I did. Taking our memories on love and treating it like nothing. Taking our memories on love and treating it like gossip. It's my love for my grandmother make me gentle when I care for you. Tell me you're falling out of love, she's breaking my heart in two.